Hello everyone and welcome to English 112, Critical Writing and Reading, Week 7. Alright, so the midterm is fast approaching, and so I wanted to remind all of you that the last day to drop is October 25th, and again, take an honest look at where you're at in the course right now, as you may need to avail yourselves of this option. I also want to take this moment to let you know that I've decided to extend the definition paper due date. I did send an email to this effect, but I did want to just remind you that your definition papers will be due this Friday, again, not Sunday, but Friday at 11:59 p.m., and you can just submit those through the link under Week 6's content. If you already submitted your paper but would like to use this time to perhaps edit it a little bit more, just email me your final draft, and that's the one that I will grade. Okay, so on to this week's fun. So this week we're going to be discussing advanced offense, that is, the identity strategy. Identity strategy gets the audience to bond with one another and see you as the ideal leader. Your choices become the will of the people, and anyone who chooses otherwise risks separation from the group. Identity strategy also commits an audience to action through identifying with the choices that define them as a group. Identity strategy is closely aligned with demonstrative rhetoric, which is a values-based language. Again, you want to make sure that your language mirrors the audience's values. This also exploits our need to belong, as it falls under the language of tribal talk. Code grooming is an essential part of identity strategy, and this uses insider language to get the audience to identify with you. Code grooming includes slang, jargon, and political coded language. And of course, as we know, every profession has its own terminology. As our text states, George W. Bush could very well be considered a master rhetorician. He employed something called the sound of sense, which is, again, not something that is logical per se, but it does indeed sound logical. When he was addressing a Christian group, he would use words like believe over and over again. When he addressed groups that were largely composed of females, he used words such as peace, security, protecting. And of course, when he was addressing the military, he used tougher sounding words such as never relent and we must not waver. The sound of sense, or logic-free values, relies completely on intuited meaning from code words. It does not rely on logic. Rhythm, tone, emphasized words are all important to keep in mind for your presentations later in this semester. It makes more sense in a speech, which relies heavily on emotion, than in print, which relies heavily on logic. It's also important to note that you want to couch your language in the most persuasive way possible, and this, of course, is framing it in the positive. One is not failing, for example, they just haven't hit their stride yet. You want to find specific commonplace terms that make the group bond, and repeat those over and over again. You also want to avoid repeating your opponent's terms when you deny them. Use vocabulary that means the opposite of your opponent's. Identity strategy also allows your audience to not only identify with you, but the choices that you make. That is, after all, what it's all about, contrary to what the hokey pokey says. Most of our day-to-day arguments do not set about making rational choices. Future and present tenses often get mixed. We are still concerned about keeping the tribe together here. Irony is saying one thing to outsiders with a meaning only revealed to your group. Just remember, it's all about identity, and this includes your password for this week's quiz. Identity, that is, with a capital I. Remember, code grooming can manipulate you in subtle ways. Look out for particular codes that appeal to groups you identify with. And often, we identify ourselves with groups according to our educational status, our gender, our class, our race, our political leanings, our age, and our hobbies, amongst many other things. All right, well, have a great week, and I will be available if any of you have any questions.